the risk of knowing that our love may soon be.
What up, world? It's your man G Williams coming at you. And like it's already been said time and time again, it ain't right because I ain't wrapped too tight. But I'm going to say something. I'm going to definitely say something.
Hey, what up, world? It's your boy G Lewis, and I just want to let you know I do say what I say because I am my father's son.
Coming at you, parlaying from a topic that we just discussed that transitions into this one. We talked about black men failing black women. Now we want to get into an issue that exposes that covers that, but gives some validity to how it ain't always our fault. And for that, we want to talk about some child support. The issue of child support.
Chus up.
Just
If for those of you that see that on your check, chus up, that's what that is, child support.
Yeah.
So don't get alarmed when you get your check and
Right.
about, $600 is coming out and you're like, what is chus up?
Yeah, because they take it out.
Yeah.
They really will. Fortunately, I haven't had that. But nevertheless, this is still a serious topic because I'm in relationship with many brothers who do, and so it's something to be talked about because as I see it, it's a broken system. The child support system itself is a broken system. It's the debtor's prison is what it is. And so we got to attack this issue from two ways. There's a moral issue to child support, and then is a legislative issue to child support. And I think when we talk about this issue, it kind of gets those two overlap where people get upset at a moral position and overlook the implications of the legislation which regulates this thing, that makes it very hard. And we're talking to men, and this is a male thing, but of course us being African American men, black men, we got to talk about it from that perspective, which it comes a true binding agent to a lot of the brothers in our community who are under the rule of child support. So the issue that I want to discuss is the debt cycle that child support creates, okay? Because of the legislative component that tells a man, whether you make these payments or not, you are subject to jail. You are subject to jail time. You are subject to being able to lose your professional licenses, your driver's licenses. You are subject to any and every sanction that we put on you, whether you have the ability to pay it or not. And you are subject to that unfairly because we are still making money regardless if you pay it or not. Because child support is a federally backed program by the feds to the individual courts in your state, in your district. They're going to get 60% of whatever they settle upon into their revenue stream. They getting paid, and they're still coming after you for not paying. So that's a heavy issue, and that's something that I want you to weigh in on. As a matter of fact, weigh in on this from the legislative perspective as well as the moral perspective. Okay? What do you think?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought it up that way. I had my talking points a little bit different, but I can switch them for the purpose of this, the way you set this up. So from the legal perspective, I have some personal issues with child support, the way it's structured from the legal perspective. And I don't know if this has been tackled, but I did, look up some stats on this. And I don't know if you realize this, but do you realize that child support is the only civil issue that a person can receive criminal repercussions for?
Yes.
Now, here's the issue with that. Yet, they are not entitled to legal representation that the Sixth Amendment says that you're supposed to get. So, you know, Gideon versus Wainwright. Let me do a little history for y'all. Gideon said, hey, if I'm going to go to court, you guys need to give me a lawyer. Court said, we don't need to give you a lawyer. Went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, if you're up on, you know, criminal charges, we have to provide you a lawyer. So if a person can potentially go to jail, right, they can potentially lose, you know, their job. They can potentially, a lot of things can be affected by them going to jail or going to prison based on back child support. And you will not afford them legal representation, which is a lot of the reasons why a lot of the men in the system can't even fight the courts, because they have no idea about the justice system or how it works. Now you have legal advocates or family law facilitators, but they're not lawyers, okay? It helps to have a lawyer. And I think that's something that does need to go all the way up into the Supreme Court. If you're going to impose criminal sanctions, then you need to uphold their civil rights. Right. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, part of my take from the legal perspective. But do you have any more, like, from a legal perspective that you kind of want to touch on?
Taxation without representation.
All day long.
That's exactly what it is. And legally, I can't think of anything else to label this as except for a racket. It's a legal racket in respects to the emphasis that's only placed on collecting the debt. And then there is no enforcement compliance that is set up because there's no interest, there's no money in enforcing the statutes in which was made. You know, except only the only thing is enforced is the lack of failure to pay, which constitutes more revenue for sending someone to jail. And so legally, where is the fairness? Where is the justice in saying that if I have to pay $1,000 a month for my child, and that's the court's ruling, but I go back to the court and say, well, I'm paying $1,000 a month, but I'm not seeing my child. And they come back to you and say, well, that's not our problem. You were mandated to pay this. We got an issue. We got a serious issue.
If you're going to enforce all of these sanctions, and remember, I'm not saying that people shouldn't pay child support. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're going to do it, then make it fair. So here's one of the pieces that is absolutely necessary, I feel, to make it fair. Paternity tests should be mandatory.
Absolutely.
How many times have we heard about people who've paid child support for 18 years, like Kanye West said, and then on the 18th birthday, you find out the kid wasn't yours. Right. Did they get that money back? No, they don't get that money back. Right. And so if you're going to have this system, number one, it needs to be proven that that 100% is my child. And then two, how many parents actually know their rights? So the family law facilitator, you know, how proactive is that family law facilitator when it comes to going to court? Is there one assigned to each individual when they go to court? You know, from a legal standpoint, like how fair is this? And then, you know, like I said, hammering home the fact that if you're going to impose criminal sanctions, I should be entitled to my Sixth Amendment right, my constitutional right to have legal representation. And if it's paid for by you, it's paid for by you, whether I can afford it or not. That is my right. So that way we can kind of get this system from a legal standpoint to be a little more just, because there's no justice without just in it. So, you know, but that's only a piece. Like you said earlier, there's the moral part.
So from a moral perspective, this topic was real to me because I asked this question in my household. I asked this question and I said, wife.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I said wife. Like I said, Booker G, we keep it real. Man. I gotta come with. We're not sitting up here talking about no topics that we don't discuss,
right?
You know, and how it affects us. But I posed a question. I said, wife, if you and I didn't work out, would you bring me up on child support? And her answer was no. as long as you handle what you said you was going to handle. Love you for that. I love her for that. Because that's a real answer. That's where child support should come in, okay? And I believe if two people have a disagreement or don't work out or whatever, and one fails to do it because of they are just adamantly saying not want to take care of their responsibility, then there's a room for child support. But I asked that question because I put myself in that situation. And that's why I asked my wife. I says, okay, knowing how I work blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that these children are provided for, if we didn't work out, why would that even be a question in your mind? You know, why would you bring me up on child support? And so I was happy with the answer because that shows that we got some understanding that, you know, she wouldn't, because of the character in which I portray in providing for my children. But that's not always the case. Through a woman scorn, through spite, where, you know, and or that may have been her goal from the jump, to see that someone was doing okay financially and they wanted to assure that paycheck every month by having the child. And or they're so scorned that they want to get back at someone who takes care of their responsibility and imposes child support on them. So that's where this all came from for me. So morally, I don't think you should ever put a man that's handling his business on child support.
Okay, so first let me say, when we talk about child support, that child support is not a thing that man is supposed to do. Like, there are women out there that should be paying child support too. And you know, from a personal perspective, you know, I talk to my partner. I ain't gonna throw your name out there, but I appreciate you talking to me about, you know, some of your issues that you went through. And when we talk about child support from a moral perspective, then we have to talk about prejudice in the courtroom, right? So there is a prejudice, right? And so what a lot of, I feel like, people don't understand, especially men don't understand, is custody is really the bigger issue when you talk about child support. A lot of men don't really care about the custody piece until the child support order is signed and written. The custody piece is more important, because if you get 50-50 custody, then whatever you paying, this person has to come up with the other half. I mean, I don't see any reason why that's a problem. And that means that you have your kids 50% of the time. That's just as important to me as a father as child support in itself. But we have to look at the role that prejudice plays in the court. So my big issue, I say it show after show after show after show, is gender roles. Gender roles, right? How do those exist in the courtroom? Well, for some reason, it is a preconceived notion that the mother automatically makes the better parent without any actual proof. So when you're going in as a father in the courtroom, you're starting from a D- or an F, and she's starting from an A just by being a mother. And a lot of these notions come from judges who, I mean, they grew up with the value system from the 50s and 60s, where it was the woman stayed at home and the man went out to work. So this is where their value system lies, right? So they make their judgments based on these value systems, which is a prejudice. And some people say it's a reverse bias, but I don't call it reverse bias. I call sexism, whether it's sexist against men or against women. And in that situation, it's sexist against men, you know, and I don't feel like they deal with it appropriately. But here's where it's a double-edged sword, ladies, because you go out and you scream to the top of your lungs, we want to be equal, we want to be treated equal, we want to be treated fairly. We do not, you know, we are not about rub my feet and get my dinner and about taking care of the kids. We are about more than that. But it's that same prejudice that you guys are fighting against that goes against the man in the courtroom. Because it's that prejudice that believes that you're only the homemaker. It believes that you only should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, that you don't have the ability to fend for yourself and take care of yourself. Therefore, it's primarily the man's position to do it. That same prejudice that you fight against in every other situation is not the one that you scream and fight against in the courtroom. So which is it? Which one do you want? Do you want to be equal and fair? Or do you want to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen? You decide. But based on that is where we should go to next. You know, because I feel like it's time for women to pick a side, and I feel like they straddle the fence and they pick a side only when it benefits them, especially in this case. But we talking about morals, and we talk about moral issues. So what other moral issues do you have that you can kind of let our people know out there is some things that they kind of need to think about when they're talking about this issue?
Morally, I agree with you 100%. Okay, and I want to say on the moral playing field, women are not beyond reproach. Because guess what? You laid down to have that baby too. So you are equally responsible. All right? Total agree with you. Just because she is female doesn't mean she's a mother. All right? The lady that threw her kid in the street and set it on fire, she was a mother, right? The court would have ruled in her favor. Right, the ones that are that drowned the kids in the tub. She was the court said that she was a fit mother, right? And so again, it's what you said was so textbook to again salad bar. Let me choose some of this. Let me choose some of this because it makes up the plate that I want. And when it comes to having children, women, you are not entitled to a man's paycheck, okay? As you said, with gender roles, let's provide. If my ability is not to pay for them, but it's to stay home and be the daycare, then that needs to be taken into consideration in court, you know? And so, tell me what you think, brother. Expound on that.
Okay. Well, I mean, from a moral perspective, I have two last points to hit, and that's the Christian value system and the better parent standard. Now, the Christian value system is where, you know, I lay a lot of my blame on these gender roles because it is that interpretation that comes from the Christian, value system that says the man is supposed to do this, the woman is supposed to do this. Even though it's scientifically proven that all human beings are androgynous. So we both have what is considered female characteristics and male characteristics in both. So how can you really define a role, right? But that Christian value system has created a blanket of socialization in our culture, right? And that socialization leads to us believing in these gender roles and buying into these gender roles, and these gender roles filter into the courtroom, and then they filter into what is supposed to be impartial judgment of the judge, which causes a problem. But here's what's funny from the Christian value system is Jesus Christ, if you read it in the Bible, was one of the most equal opportunity individuals that you would ever find in the Bible, right? The Christian value system always talks about the man has to be here and the woman needs to be here, and the man, and we can't have any woman ministers and only male ministers and blah, blah, blah. And this is their interpretation of the gender roles. But Jesus Christ, everywhere he went, what? Peter and Mary Magdalene. You go ahead and go through the Bible and you go through the verses and you look. Mary Magdalene was there with them, preaching with the disciples, performing, you know, just as many miracles as Peter, right? Equal opportunity. I don't see him saying, Mary, you go ahead and get the communion bread, and me and Peter go out here and handle this stuff. That's not the way it works. Yet it is interpreted that way and filtered out in a blanket of socialization. You know, and that needs to stop. People need to start reading for themselves and start understanding what the true facts are so they can start understanding what the true roles are in the household. Because it really comes down to what works in that individual household. Like you said, if you're better at staying home with the kids, then you need to stay at home with the kids. There's nothing that says that a woman makes a better parent, which brings me to the better parent standard, which is what courts use to define who gets the kids, right? Who gets more custody, who gets more money, the better parent standard. Well, how much of that standard is based on psychological and physical well-being?
Right.
Or is it just based on a prejudice, and a prejudice that's based on that's come from a Christian value system that says that this woman is a better parent for the child because we consider her the nurturer, because that's what we have decided. When really the better parent standard, if it's going to be utilized in court and there's going to be some just injustice, then it needs to be fair. So it has to be based on physical and psychological well-being of the child. You should never see a child screaming while the mother is dragging them out of the courtroom when they're screaming for their father because they want their father, but the court has deemed that the father can get no custody or he can't see his kids at all. That makes absolutely no sense. And until they can scientifically show me where a mother is scientifically the better parent, there's something chemically inside of a woman that guarantees makes her the better parent, until then, courts, you can no longer make that argument. And men, you need to stop letting them make that argument. And for women that are in the courtroom, I applaud the ones that say, hey, I'm okay with the kids being with the dad because he's the better parent, because I'm not there right now. I applaud the women that do it. But for those that don't, know that eventually you're going to have to answer for this, and courts are going to have to answer for this. Somebody's going to have the guts to go to the Supreme Court, and then that's when everything's going to change. So, you know, from that perspective, that's kind of the two that I kind of hammer home to kind of round this thing out, which is why this system needs to be reformed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Total reform.
Total reform. So you want to do a final thought on this joint?
Sure.
Let's knock this out. Final thought.
Final thought. Okay. All you women out there who decide that you are entitled to anything, kill yourself. That's my final thought.
Here's my final thought. A lot of the rules that are followed in the court system were designed a long time ago and based on philosophies that have been outdated. Modern day circumstances demand modern day laws that reflect these modern day circumstances. Men do take care of the kids. Men do spend time with the kids. Men do take care of households. Men do dishes. Men do wash clothes. You know, men do mop floors. So, you know, men do read bedtime stories to their kids and help them with homework. So when we talk about this better parent standard, we got to be sure and crystal clear exactly what it is that we're talking about. Because until we can deem evidence that says that one parent is scientifically better than the other, then we have to be reasonable and apply a reasonable person standard to the better parent standard, which is based on a reasonable person's point of view, which person realistically is better for the kids. And if that's both, then that's what needs to happen. And that's really my final thought. Change the laws to reflect the modern times so that we can put together the households that the law is ripping apart.
My final thought is this. Stop letting the court legislate your household, okay? Men, women, if you have a disagreement and you have children in between the two of you, please, I urge you to come to the table for the sake of the children, okay? Meaning, recognize what you do well for those children and capitalize on it and build on it, okay? Because as soon as you put the court into your affairs, you are destined for trouble, okay? Please, I urge you, if y'all lay down together, then at least go back to that moment when it was that good enough and make a conscious decision, okay? I'm only advocating child support in the event that no one can get along, okay? Or one vehemently decides that they will not take care of their responsibility. But if you can go back to that person that you got a disagreement right now and sit down at the table and hash something out, please do that, and let's get this racket system who has no care whatsoever for your children. All they're trying to do is line up their fiscal, financial budget. Let's get them out of our households. That's my final thought.
360.
I woke up this morning and I said, you know, instead of waiting for a good day to happen, you know, waiting around through ups and downs, you know, I just said, look,